all, before we start, I wanted to share with you this picture. Somehow, when we think on behavior, the first thing that comes to our mind is like, ooh, all the kids sitting, listening, being well-behaved, attending. And now that we are on Zoom, we kind of have that picture, everybody with their eyes open, focused, sitting. So why is that we get this? And moreover, why is that we get this? Right? I don't know why, but since we are doing this Zoom Good News Club, I have gotten to know way too many pets, including beetles this size crawling on the kids' arms. So I don't know what is it, but they are also happy to share their pets, but there is a time for everything, right? So definitely, this is something that you might be facing too, or kids out of their seats, or only being able to see their hair and not of the faces there. But one thing we know is that if we need wisdom, we can ask God for it. Because the Bible says in James 1:5 that he is generous and enjoys giving to everyone, so he will give you wisdom. So we are asking God for wisdom now to know how to use this information that we're going to learn in order to be able to have a better behavior in our class where we are teaching. So let's think about behavior and what behavior is. So behavior is the way in which a person acts in response to a particular situation or stimulus. You bring that snack to the kids and suddenly chaos, right? They all run to the table, they all try to grab the snack. So it's the way that they responded to that situation or stimulus. And I can think on other examples, but we are going to be given more examples as the class continues. So in other words, if a dead man can do it, then it is not a behavior. So let's think about this. Can a dead man get out of his seat? No, so it is a behavior. Can a dead man engage in an off-task behavior, such as talking out, looking around the room, fidgeting with objects? They can't, so it is a behavior. Can a dead man talk? He can't, so talking is a behavior. Can a dead man eat? No, so it is a behavior. In other words, if a dead man can do it, then it is not. Pretty much everything we do is a behavior. And there are some basics of behavior that I and everybody in the behavioral field calls them the ABCs of behavior. A is the antecedent, B is the behavior itself, and C are the consequences of this behavior. So we're going to analyze each one of these parts today. So what is the antecedent for the behavior? It's what happened right before the behavior occurs. It's a stimulus, could be a directive, a question, could be a sound, could be a light, could be anything that happened around you in the classroom area and happened right before the behavior. They have the potential to be, all of these things have the potential to become an antecedent for a behavior. What happened right before? You might be having this amazing class and suddenly your cell phone rings, right? And you lose everybody's attention. The ringing, that sound is the antecedent, and the behavior is off-task behavior. Everybody is thinking on something else, who called, or laughing, or telling you that you should have silenced your phone, right? So anything that happens right before the behavior occurs. So let's look at this picture, right? And now think on the consequence of the behavior. What happens right after, right, the behavior occurs? In this case, they ate ice cream. And for the faces of these kids, I'm guessing that they got really happy, right? That was the consequence. So the consequence in this case, I'm sure, is going to maintain the behavior of eating ice cream, because now they have discovered that they enjoy ice cream, and it had reinforced this behavior of eating this cold food, and they are going to do it again because they are enjoying it. So what happened right after the behavior, that consequence is going to either produce that the behavior is maintained or not, or reduce and eliminate it, right? So how do we know? So let's look at this graphic. In this graphic, we have the antecedent over here. We have the behavior, and then we have the consequence. For the consequence, we have two possible consequences. Something that is going to maintain the behavior, we call it a reinforcer. Or something that is going to reduce the behavior, we call it a punishment. So if reduces the behavior, it's a punishment. If maintains the behavior, is a reinforcer. And to make it a little bit more complicated, but I'm hoping you're still all with me, we are going to think on something else. We are going to think on the terms positive and negative. We can have two kinds of reinforcers and two kinds of punishments, positives or negatives. Positive is when you add something, and negative is when you take something away. Okay, so let's put all this into the graphing. Again, oh, sorry, not yet. So for example, I received my credit card billing, right? My credit card billing was something that was added to me, right? But it's going to reduce my behavior of going into Amazon and buying more things. So that is a punishment. It's a positive punishment because it's something that was added to me that is going to reduce the behavior, okay? So, but if I go into my bank account and look how the bank account numbers are going down, right? That is a negative punishment because something is taken away from my account, but it's also going to reduce my behavior of buying too much. So that's how we think on positives and negatives. When we talk about a reinforcer, a child who does not want to sit to do the homework, for example, and now the parent said, okay, go away, you don't need to stay here, is taking something away, so it's negative, but it's reinforcing because next time the child is going to sit to do something they don't want, they will start screaming and asking the parents to take them away, and the parent will take him away. Or if the child stays and do all the things that he needs to do, then the parent will give him the iPad to play or some toy that they prefer to play. That is a positive reinforcer because they are adding something. I know it's a little too much complicated, but we'll go through it. Now, besides all that, we have what is called motivating operations. So the motivating operations, so all events and stimulus conditions that will alter the value of that consequence. If the child came to Good News Club without having dinner, now he's very hungry, and you pull out the snack into the back of the table, and now the child behaves really, really bad, and you tell him, you're not having the snack today because you didn't behave correctly. Now, the chances that next time he will behave correctly are even more because that increases the value of not giving him the snack because he was hungry. At the same time, if you said, if you behave correctly, you're going to have this snack, that will increase the chances that he will behave correctly because he is hungry. So those are operating motivations. If the child that day is having an ear infection and he cannot hear correctly, then that is going to increase the chances that he's going to try to avoid music because what he hears is bothering him. So those are all motivating operations that occur in the mix of that. So this is all the terminology for all this. So let's go into the behavior itself. Let's try to work the B a little bit. So all the behaviors have what we call a topography or a clear definition. Not all the behaviors are the same, even if you look at them like the same. He was a mess today. He really had bad behavior. What do you mean with bad behavior? He was coming out of the chair. He was biting other kids. He was kicking. He was throwing objects. What is the bad behavior? Most likely you can define specifically what the behavior is. but also you can say the intensity, the frequency, and the duration. Because one thing is a kid that threw a tantrum and screamed very loud, and he did it 3 times, and each time lasted 20 minutes, to a kid that maybe, you know, did a little push to a classmate. So things are different, and we have to take into consideration all these factors: intensity, frequency, duration. But then the most important thing that we need to take into consideration when we're talking about behavior is the function of the behavior. Because the function of the behavior is key to determine how to modify it. And every behavior has a function. They have a reason why they occur. For you to remember, we have this acrostic that spells MEETS. If you can see it from top to bottom, the MEETS. So the first one that we have there is the M, that is for medical. A medical cause needs to be ruled out, or not even the most perfect behavior plan will be effective, right? If this child has a medical underlying condition, that has to be ruled out first. As I said before, the child has an ear infection, so for him it's really, really bad when you put the music and you're singing with all the kids and you're having fun and you ask them to move, and this poor kid is feeling something that a mumble sound inside his ear, or a ringing something that is really bothering him. So no matter what you do, until you don't fix that, then you won't be able to modify his behavior that probably he's having at that point, because he doesn't want to be in that room that is loud. The other one is escape. Escape is something that is pretty obvious when somebody wants to escape, but it's also mostly happening when something is really too hard or too boring for the kids. With our generations, Gen Z, the kids that we work with, we have learned that they need to be engaged within the first 8 seconds to be able to remain engaged during the activity. If that doesn't happen soon enough, they are going to find it boring, no matter if later on it gets more interesting, and they are going to start doing other things to escape, to do something to not be in that class. The other one that we have there is attention. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? But the child is trying to obtain attention no matter how. Now, you have this kid that starts screaming, kicking, and suddenly has 2 teachers sitting next to him, giving them fully attention to contain him so that he will not kick and scream anymore, right? He got the attention he wanted. So next time he wants attention, he will start kicking and screaming again. So we need to figure out a way to give this child full attention when he's engaging on behaviors that we want the child to have, and not when he's engaging in behaviors that we do not want him to have. The next letter that we have there is T, is tangible. And that's very simple too, is the child is simply trying to obtain an object, a food, or access an activity. So something tangible. He wants something. And then he engages in these behaviors because he wants that toy that his other friend has, or because he wants food, or engage in some activity. And the last one is sensory. Sensory is hard because some kids just simply engage on this to fulfill some sort of sensory need that they have. And it's very internal, and we don't feel the same sensory that they are feeling at the same time. So it's very hard to replace. If a child is grinding his teeth to fulfill that need of just simply grinding teeth because that gives him a nice sensation, is very hard to replace with another behavior that will kind of fill the same sensory need, so that they would not grind their teeth. So keeping all this into consideration, we're going to watch a couple of videos for you to discover what is the function of the behavior for these kids. These videos are YouTube videos. Maybe you watched them already because they were pretty famous at some point. Can you hear well? Can you hear? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So this child seems to have a very bad something going on, but he only cries if he's sure that their father is watching him. If not, he doesn't need to cry. Look, that was silent, right? He walks, he sees that, and that's it. Full meltdown, right? So obviously this child is not really having a problem. He's not having a stomach ache. He's not crying all the time. He's trying to gain attention, right? He's really trying to gain attention. So he'll cry if he knows that someone is watching him, and then he'll have a full meltdown at that point. Let me see what happened with this kid.
What's the problem? You can't lift that up? No. Come back and try again. You're almost to the sink. Oh. I can't. That looks like it's very heavy. I think you can do it though, Kirsten. I think you can lift it up to the sink and you can help clear the table. I think you can do it. Your big hammy couldn't do it, but you could do it. Oh. Oh. You want to try again? Maybe you take your thumb out of your mouth and move your lovey and you can do it all. Okay, let's go. Put it in the sink. Oh. You did it. It was so heavy.
Well, there are a couple of things going on with this little girl. One is that she's obviously trying to escape a task that was given to her. So she had the perfect excuse. She's too little and that is too heavy for her to do it, right? So she's complaining that it's heavy. But I don't know if you all notice that she also is sucking her thumb and having this little blanket with her. So probably she also is trying to fulfill some sensory need at the same time. And when she gets so distressed because she is crying because of this activity that she's doing, suddenly she needs to fulfill the sensory even more. So she is with her thumb and with the little blanket, and any other parent would say she's just simply tired. She needs to go to bed. Probably it's bedtime, and that's the biggest problem here. But as you can see, kids act differently in different situations, but we can start thinking when we think on behavior on what is causing this behavior, and based on that, how do I need to react to this? So what do we do now? Behaviors can be modified. It is possible to modify it. All we need to think is observe, take data, and then determine what is the function of the behavior. What is this kid throwing chairs in the middle of my lesson? Why is he getting up of the chair? Why is he doing that? And based on that, we are going to learn what we need to reinforce and what we don't want to reinforce, right? Because if we reinforce certain behaviors, they are going to simply be even worse, or at least they are going to be maintained. Right. One thing that we are not going to do is to punish to decrease the behavior, especially we're not going to do that during our Good News Club or during our Sunday school lesson, or when you have kids' church or whatever is the ministry you're doing. But we are not going to do it for a reason that is very logical. When you have a need or a behavior has a function, for example, gain attention. So this child is kicking his classmate to get attention. And now you punish the kicking. I am sure that the child is going to figure out what other behavior, maybe will be screaming, maybe will be moving the chair or something else, because he still needs to fulfill the attention need. So simply punishing a behavior that you don't want the child to have, to reduce it, is not going to fix the problem. The problem is only going to be fixed when you replace the behavior for an acceptable behavior that will still have the same function. So if the child wants attention, we can teach the child how to correctly request for attention. And we can tell the child and give the child tons of attention when he is engaging in these great behaviors, so that we stop reinforcing the behavior when it's not an appropriate one. So we'll get to some examples to help you with this. So we are going to think on that instead of punishing, we are going to reinforce more the appropriate behavior to increase the good behavior, so that the inappropriate behaviors will not persist. So we're going to use a proactive approach. And for this, we have control, and we can modify the antecedent and the consequence of this behavior, so that we can obtain the desired behavior. So let's start thinking on our class right now. First of all, you need to tell the kid what you expect from them. And for that, we have rules, and we have classrooms rules. I know that most of you know from CEF our up rules, the sit up, look up, listen up, right? Those are simple rules that we can use to help these kids to engage in the right behavior. If you have the ability of the green screen, right? Now you can engage the kids in activities such as this one. So we are going to show them like the magnifying glass, right? And now we are going to look for the rules that are somewhere there, right? And we are going to see if the kid can guess what is the rule, right? So in this case, for example, the rule is sit up, right? That's our rule number one, but we can have another rule coming up, for example, this boy, so the kid can guess what is the rule. In this case is look up, and it's a little bit more engaging and easier for them to do. We can also have the kid or have the rule as a simple background where we can point to the rules at any time in the class. Let me show you a couple of videos. Nowadays, you can also very easily get these amazing videos in YouTube where you can have the kids see. Just be aware when you show videos and things like that, that sometimes you need to be sure that you are aware of the entire video. Maybe the introduction of the end of the video is not what you would prefer to show in your class. Let's watch a little bit of this one. So this will be more specifically when you are now doing Zoom activities and you have the kids engaged in this way. So you can show the video, but you can also show a video like this when you are in a physical classroom with the kids, if you have access to a computer and a big screen. So this is engaging because it's drawing as the rules are being given out. I believe there is one more that I have here for you. Let me close that out. Oops, let me share again. I have another video here. Let me see. Sure that the sound is better. Okay, here we are.
Number 1, be ready. 2, go to your study area. 3, microphone muted, camera on. 4, be respectful. Number 1, be ready. This means being on time, being dressed, and having a smile on your face, ready to learn. Number 2, go to your study area. We want you to have a nice quiet place where you can work with no distractions, no toys, no TV, no food.
And here you can add no pets. Probably that helps if you have a lot of pets in your class going on. Let's go back to the slides. Okay. So as I said, there are a lot now that all the teachers are going online. So you can search there and find rules that it will be good for your classroom, or use the same app rules and adapt them a little bit for the Zoom. But I like this one that had the 4 steps that we were watching last. Is be ready, be on time, be dressed, be with a smile. 2, go to the study area, nice quiet place, no TV and no food. I know it's hard, but if it's just an hour and we can avoid the kids having their dinner while they are there, it's best, because then they can concentrate better on the activity. And also avoid distractions, because then they start talking about their food with their other friends and sharing in that way. Microphones muted, but camera on, right? And be respectful, raise your hand when you want to speak, listen to teachers, classmates, etc. Prepare for your classroom hours. And one of the things that is very, very helpful cross-board is have schedules. Sometimes general, sometimes individual. Some kids might need an individual schedule. For some of them, because they have limited attention, they have anxiousness or difficulty in memory, it's hard for them to understand what's coming next. So all they wanted is the game, and the game, and the game, and the game, and they're looking at it. So it's for that game at the end of the class. And it's hard for them to remain even focused during the lesson because they are just thinking on that. But if they have a schedule where they can see, oh, we do this, this, and this, and then we're going to have the game, it might be easier for them. Using repetitions and routine, especially with those kids that are diagnosed with autism or with attention deficit disorders, for them is great to have repetitions and routine. And avoid gaps. Gaps are terrible. Those transitions when nobody knows who's coming next, what is going to be done after, is sometimes it's more than 8 seconds. And remember, I said 8 seconds, that's all you have to engage these kids. And if those 8 seconds, we are like, who's next? Like, we're doing it. It's your turn, come here. Do I have to go now? And we lost them, we lost their attention. And for all the people using technology nowadays, try it before the class starts, especially if you're going to show videos. A lot of those videos have advertisement at the beginning. You want to be sure that the advertisement is out of the way before you start with the video, and watch the video before showing, just in case. You never know what it could come at some point. Very good. Prepare the classroom space. For those of us who are willing to come to a physical space at some point, we want to be sure that the classroom is not too hot, too cold, too noisy, too much color. How they are seating. Nowadays, I was thinking about that. With the social distancing, having everybody separated, it will avoid a lot of kicking chairs and a lot of bothering the friends next to them, if the space allows. But we have to plan for all of that, how they are going to sit, so they are not going to be pushing the friend in front of them or in the side. Cover things that are not needed. Unnecessary objects, visuals. If there's too much going on, it's going to be only for them to be distracted and not be able to engage appropriately. Have clear pictures during your lesson so that you will captivate the kids' attention, and they will be able to follow in this way as well. And kids that have issues with language, they will also, by watching the pictures, it will be easier for them to follow the lesson. If using an online platform like we're doing all these days, be sure to open all the tabs that you're going to share before you start. And don't go looking for the website at that point, because you're going to have a gap and you're going to lose their distraction. Be sure you have a good light. And also check a little bit of who else is going to be in the house with them. We had already at the Board of Education many situations in which the kid is engaged and somehow looking, but suddenly the parents walk on the back and they are not even dressed. So we have to be mindful of all of the things when we are doing Zoom as well. So because then the rest of the kids are there and they are watching as well. So maybe we can be sure to instruct the kid to be facing the wall, so they will have less possibilities of not facing, but the wall on the back, so that they will have less possibilities of somebody walking behind that. But things like phones and dogs barking and this and that, if they are during the game, it's fine. But if not, we'll try to have them mute their devices. Then get information about your unique students. Ask the parents if they have been okay, if they have slept okay, if they are sick. how they feel, how they are, because that might be the only reason why that day they will be acting differently. So we need to be sure that we have the right information. So communicating with parents is really important. And for kids with unique and special needs, are they in medication? Do they have a communication device? Do they already use a reward system in the school or at home that works and that we could apply in our group as well? So let's do one example. I want to keep myself within the time. So let's do one example of how a behavior that looks the same could be different and we need to react differently, right? So when we were seeing about these antecedents and consequences, let's put it into practice. So we're just going to do this. Child A gets out of seat. So the behavior is getting out of the seat, right? We're starting our class and the child runs from one side to another. Zoom or in person, the child always get out of the seat and go somewhere else. If the function of the behavior is to escape, they don't want to be there, it's too boring or it's too hard for them, what things can we use? One thing that we can use is a token board. A token board, I think I have the picture here, looks something like this. So they need to gain rewards throughout the class, throughout the time, in order to get something that is really reinforcing for them. So in this one here, for example, they have to gain 10 in order to get something. So they can pick and choose what they want at the end. It might be a little tiny toy from the treasure chest or a special snack or something like that. Or it could be a sticker that they want. It doesn't have to be something really, but it has to be something that they really enjoy and want. But during the lesson time and during our whole good news time, they have to be gaining enough checks in order for them to have this at the end. This one has less, and I will strongly encourage you that if it's the first time that you're using this with a kid, you use only 2 or 3 at the beginning for them to get the idea. Oh, I only need to do this. It was easy and I got a reward. Now I have to get 3 of this to get the reward, and I need to get 10 of them, but slowly increase as they are behaving better. The schedule, also very important for these kids. They want to escape, but if you tell them it's only 5 minutes of this part that you don't understand, or it's hard for you, or it's boring for you, then we're doing a game, or then we're doing something different and you want to stay for that. But if you tell them ahead of time, it's a lot easier. Sensory breaks or easy transitions. Maybe they can't be sitting there for that long, and they simply need to get up and move and jump in between things for them to be able to stay. So how can we avoid getting out of seat if the function is escape? These are some of the ideas. However, if he's getting out of seat because he wants to access a toy, this is a different function of the behavior. So now we're going to do different things. They don't care about the schedule or the token board. Now what they want is to access the toy that is over there. So let's think first what the toy is. If the toy is a toy that maybe at some point in the lesson we can give this child, maybe we can make him gain access to that object. Okay, so maybe he wanted the snack that we were going to give at the end. So we can say, okay, if you sit through the lesson, if you do this or if you do that, then I'm going to give you 1, and maybe I'll give you a little bit more or extra because you did it correctly. If it's an object that is impossible for the kid to gain because it's something that doesn't belong to you, it's in the school building, we're not even supposed to touch, and now the child wants that thing that is over there, simply you have to tell them no and redirect them. If there is another similar object or something that you can give instead of that, is better. And if not, you will have to ignore the request, right? Because he cannot have access to that. So ignoring the request is better, because if you keep on engaging on that, what is the child going to do? I will keep on trying because maybe at some point I will and that is going to lead to 20 minutes of disruptive behavior that you don't want to engage into. If the out of seat is a behavior that is occurring because of sensory, then we need to replace that with something that is acceptable. Maybe we'll talk with the family to see what is going on. But then in this case, sensory breaks having a wedge seating, something that even sitting on a ball that they can still move, but they are sitting down. Or maybe having something on their hands that they can move and touch and do while they are sitting will help them to still have that sensory need, but without getting out of the chair. If the function of the behavior for getting out of the chair is attention, they want attention, the best thing is to ignore the behavior. Because if you give them attention for that, then they are going to just increase that behavior. Remember, they are going to maintain that behavior. They are going to keep on doing. So what we want to tell them is we want to give this kid tons of attention, maybe before the class starts, maybe in some other time, and when the behavior that they are engaging in is appropriate. So we are hoping that they are going to realize that I don't need to engage in all these difficult behaviors because I simply, by doing this that is nice, that I just simply smile to my teacher, come and say hi, I get all the attention that I need, and I don't need them to be getting out of my chair all the time. So you get a picture how important it is to figure out the function of the behavior to know how to act in order to increase or decrease these behaviors. So last but not least, thank God we have God, right? That can give us the wisdom and all what we need. And in James 3:17, it says that the wisdom that comes from God is like this. First is pure. I can talk to you and I can tell you many things about what behavior is and give you all this technological terminology and all that, but only God can give us pure wisdom. It's also peaceful, gentle, and easy to please. This wisdom is always ready to help people who have trouble and to do good for others. This wisdom is always fair and honest. I love that we have this wisdom from God, because if not, any of the technicality will really not be good for anything. So I know I'm pretty sure, but somebody helped me with this, that you were during this time taking some, or they were writing on the chat questions. If we have time for that, I'm not sure if we have time for that. And if somebody was writing questions and there is a question that needs to be answered right now, I can do that if we have the time. I'm not very sure.
The main question that I saw in the chat was wondering about the green screen, how you do that.
Okay. I don't know if I will be able to share that, but with the green screen, you know, when you use Zoom, that you can choose your virtual background. And when you choose the virtual background, when you add that, you're going to see a little tiny thing right under the picture that says that you manually pick the color of the background if the color is not accurate or detected. So in this case, I have a different color. This color is pink, whatever. So I click on that little picture of the color and I match that one. So now the only thing that has the green screen is this part. So with this part, you see, I have, instead of having the whole screen, I only have that. So it's pretty cool to find and point to things and all that. So you can do binoculars or whatever, thing like that. But then if you come back and you match the color again with the green that you have on the back, the entire screen goes back to green screen.